So the tips I would share for, 5 tips I would share for fellow artists would be: number one, especially if you're new to the industry, be prepared to move around and hop from contract to contract. For myself, when I went into industry, I went into a smaller visual effects studio in Cardiff, and if I hadn't have left to do my master's degree or hadn't have left to go on teaching, I'd probably still be there now. I know it was a really safe place to be. When you're looking at Cardiff, Vancouver, Montreal, New York, you know, your hubs, basically. Don't be surprised if you have to move around contract to contract. My parents grew up in a world where you worked for a company and at 16 and then you were with them for life. Now I've already jumped between 4 or 5 different, places. I worked for Bates Studio, Clothcat, a college up in Surrey, Gower College, 4. And I'm only 27 and they're like, you need to settle down. But not just visual effects, but the jobs markets overall, people do tend to move around, but a lot more in visual effects. So don't be surprised if you kind of have to hop around. One other thing I'll say is, second point, situate yourself within a VFX hub. And what I mean by that, it's a good idea to do that. I never wanted to move to London. I wasn't overly concerned with working at MPC or ILM, or basically I wasn't overly concerned working on huge productions. I just wanted to do visual effects because I enjoyed it. I had family ties and relationship ties tying me to Cardiff and Swansea and Wales at the time. So for me, it didn't make sense to go to London. I actually went up to London to teach like 3 years later, and I didn't enjoy it. It's too busy for me. For most people though, if you can situate yourself within one of these hubs like London, Vancouver, New York, anything like that, it gives, networking with people. You don't have to do it remotely like this, or you can hop if a contract finishes with, say, MPC. Well, I don't know, ILM is just down the road. There's so much going on there, and it'll do you well. I personally didn't. I don't regret it either, but I wasn't bothered about working on huge productions. I worked on some films and some BBC shows, but to be honest, London wasn't for me. But if you can, I would situate yourself within a hub like that. The third tip would be 100% unionize. I really think everyone should be unionizing. If you don't, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because you get asked to work unpaid, weekends, bank holidays, overtime unpaid. You haven't got a leg to stand on. So unionize. Fourth one is make sure you make time for a life outside of work. It is so ridiculously easy to just have work as your main thing, and it can ruin relationships. It can, if you're not careful, it can ruin relationships. You've just got to be careful. Know when to say no. Don't be afraid to say no. I think there is this problem before the unionisation. If you said no, well, there's 10 other people waiting at the door who've just graduated who want a job. And that was always the worry. You unionise and that helps. So, unionise and make time for life outside of work. It's so important that work doesn't become your be-all and end-all. Final tip is make it your passion. If you're passionate about visual effects, you'll succeed. That's it at the end of the day. Like I said earlier, something as simple as my homepage when I open up Google Chrome is FX Guide, because I'm curious. I want to know what's going on in the industry. I want to get up to date with everything that's happening. So if you make visual effects your passion, you're going to do well, and that's the bottom line. So be prepared to move around and hop contract to contract. Situate, if you can, yourself in a visual effects hub. Unionize, 100%. Make time for life outside of work. Look after your relationships. Look after your health. Okay, and then make it your passion. If it is your passion, you can't make visual effects your passion, but if it is your passion, you're going to succeed and you're going to do well. So yeah. Thanks for having me, Manoj. It's been really, really good to kind of chat and answer these, ask you some questions and answer some for you. If you put my link to YouTube down in the description below, people can check out my videos. I'll do the same with yours as well. But yeah, thank you very much for having me. Check out some of my tutorials, and yeah, cheers. It's been great. Thank you.